Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And I cannot believe it, but it's the last show of 2025. And I'm so excited to have Tom Campbell back with me because it seems like it's been for a really long time. And okay, it has. It's been so long that Donna reconnected with me and said, can we take some of the really old holiday shows that you've done with Tom? And I went, of course you can. Because she said, a whole bunch of people have been asking. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. We tried, but both of us have had an extremely busy 2025. I've had a move. Tom, you've had a move. You've had a lot of stuff going on. You've also been extremely busy, which is great. So we're finally back. We should be doing more frequent shows in 2026. But so the last show of 2025, I thought I would share. I watched It's a Wonderful Life the other day. And it has been one of the movies that when I first started watching it, I couldn't understand why people thought it was so great. Because for me, I saw, these sacrifices that he had to make. And I saw that, it felt to me like it was just struggle. Every time he wanted something would go wrong, and he just never got what all he ever wanted was to travel the world. And it just never happened because every time something came up, and he never got to go to university, he never got to do any of the things that he wanted to do because he kept sacrificing for his family. And what I came to realize, especially the last time I watched it, which was just a few days ago, I really realized how it's not about the things that happened. It's about how we respond to it. And I responded the same way he did. And I know that that's kind of what movies do, is they try to bring you in and really, but I could relate so much because there's so many things that happen. I've experienced some of those things too. And then it really hit me that when he realized he did have a wonderful life because of all the people he helped. And that's really what it's all about. It's really understanding that we have a choice all the time, but when we get upset, we aren't upset with the person. We aren't upset with what happened. We're upset because we're trying to control the environment. We're upset because we're not getting what we want. And it comes the same with relationships. In the new year, on the Hub, Carolyn and I are going to do a show on relationships. And so that's the other thing. 2025 really, really taught me patience, kindness, and how to get out of my ego when it comes to all the things that can happen in relationships. Relationships are really messy, and they also teach us the most about ourselves. But it can really be a challenge to be unconditionally loving when stuff around you are going on. And both the movie and what I learned this year really kind of brought it home. It's like, it's so easy to get caught up in our own ego and our own pain and not see that we have a choice. We always have a choice. So I thought we would end 2025 with a show about the choices and how we become kinder and more loving in 2026.
Yeah, that's a really good topic.
I thought so.
Yes. You mentioned once, and you were speaking about the show, that the guy who was the kind of centerpiece of the show, he kept having unfortunate things happen that just kind of got in the way of his plan. So he never seemed to really do what he wanted to do. He always was doing things for other people. And you mentioned, that was sort of martyrdom. The poor guy's always, he saves his money to go to college, and then he has to give it to his brother. And he does this, and then and so you start to feel sorry for him. But You see, that's because we're judging it
Mm.
from our own perspective, and our own perspective is usually self-centered. I hate to say that, but yes, most of us are self-centered. That means what we think about most of the time and the things we do and the plans we make are all about us. How do we get what we want? How do we get what we need? How do we avoid the things we don't want and we don't need? So our life is centered around what we think is good for us and avoiding what we think is not what we want. So we can use that more ugly word, manipulation, but it's all about manipulating life, other people, the environment, everything that you can manipulating it so that you come out to be as good as it could be for you. Well, that is by definition self-centered. Now, a lot of people listening to this will say, well, of course, that's what everybody does. Everybody has to do that. If I don't look out for number one, who else is? That's just natural that we should be that way. But that's not true. It's not natural. It's common, but it's not the way we need to be. Now, if you relook at that movie, and of course the character always played it as, oh no, now I have to do this, But let's say that he was not self-centered, then he would make those choices. Oh, well, I have to stay here because of this, so I'll give my brother the money to go to school. But he would make that not with any anger and not with any, like, oh, this is horrible, woe is me. But he just realized that was the better thing to do. So he'd just do it. Now, in our minds, because we're self-centered, we say, oh, that was awful. He probably is really upset that he didn't get to go to school or he didn't get his dreams, come true. But if he was grown up and not self-centered, he wouldn't feel like that. He wouldn't feel like, oh no, poor me. He would have thought, oh, okay, I have to do this, then I can help somebody else with that. And he would have been fine with that. It might not have been what he planned, but the way life works is stuff happens and you get to deal with it. That's life. Stuff happens and you get to deal with it. And it doesn't really matter so much what happens. What really, really matters is how do you deal with it. If you deal with it positively, which means you're not upset, you're not angry, you're not, woe is me, you're not in self-pity, you deal with it in a positive way. Oh, okay, not what I planned, but it's a new adventure that I wasn't planning on doing, but I'll do it. And I'll do it positively and as best I can, and things will be okay. So you have a positive attitude. If you deal with things positively in ways that kind of are beneficial for everybody, it's maybe not what you were planning, but it's best for everybody, then that's good. And you should be happy about that. So it's a matter of letting go of that. Yourself is at the center. And if things cross you and are not the way you want them to be, not the way you know they should be, because we all know how things should be, the best way for everybody, that ought to be like this, and he or she ought to be like that, and they should stop being this way and start being that way. We know how everybody else in the world should be except ourselves. Right. And we can look at other people and tell you immediately what's wrong with them, the issues they have, what their problems are, how they need to change. But we can't see any of that in ourselves. We're totally blind when it comes to us because our ego constantly justifies every thought we have. If we have some sort of thought or some kind of idea, then of course that's a good thought and a good idea. And for most people, there's only two ways that something can be done. There's my way and the wrong way. Those are the only two possibilities that can be done because we know best and we understand things. But all of that we can see in others, others can see in us just as easily, but we can't. There isn't anybody who, well, I shouldn't say that's probably happened once or twice in the history of the universe, but there's hardly anybody who looks at themselves and says, I'm self-centered. nobody sees themselves as being self-centered. Now, other people may see you as self-centered, but you will not see yourself because your ego has taken care of that problem. Your ego has already arranged for you to be, have all the excuses and reasons that you need to justify whatever it is you feel like you have to do. So being other-centered rather than self-centered is the optimal way to live. And people will think, well, if I'm other-centered, then I'll just get taken advantage of, I'll be walked over, I'll always be the person left, holding the empty bag. Because if you don't get out there and push and take care of it and see that you make it, then you're going to lose. And it's just the opposite. That's not true. When you stop being self-centered, suddenly a life that is in constant struggling to manipulate all that stuff to be the way you know it should be, that life of struggle disappears. And you're not struggling anymore. Your life becomes happy. You become okay. Your stress level goes down to zero. Life gets better because now you're doing things, not trying to avoid the bad things, which is very high stress. You're just, whatever comes to you, you do it with as much grace and as positively as you can. You accept the things you can't change. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't change anything. Sure, you do have some ability to change some things, but there's a whole lot more things that you can't change than there are things that you can change. And as far as people goes, the only person you can change is yourself. You can't change other people. And if you say, well, if I could just change these people to be more the way I want them, then everything would be fine. But it wouldn't be fine. Because if you try to change them and push them to be something other than they are, they'll push back. They'll double down on whatever the dysfunction is that you don't like. They'll do it twice as much because you're pushing them. Nobody likes to be pushed. Nobody likes to be told, you're doing it wrong. You're being wrong. You should be different. Here's the way you need to be. And it doesn't matter whether that's true or not true. People don't like it. It may be perfectly true and obvious to you, but people don't like it. And you'll get pushback because their ego can also make up every excuse and everything that they need to know that what they're doing is exactly what they need to be doing, just like you can. So when you push on them, they'll push back. Even in your mind, it's just obvious that that would be better for them as well as for you. It's not like that in their mind. In their mind, you're trying to push them to be different than the way they are, and that's intrusive. So if you look at that movie from the viewpoint of him being a low entropy, high quality consciousness, then when he had all those things where it didn't turn out the way he planned, he would accept that and say, well, these are things I can't change. And if I can't change them, then I'll deal with them positively and it'll be fine. And I'll give my brother the money and I'll do this and I'll do that. And everybody will get along and that'll be just fine. And he wouldn't do it with, oh, woe is me. He'd do it with a smile. He'd be good and he'd do it well and he'd be positive with it. So he's not suffering. He's not a martyr. He's living the good life. He just has to see it from that perspective. If he sees it from the perspective, I didn't get to go to school, and if then he carries that grudge and that disappointment, then he's going to be miserable. But if he's a high quality consciousness, he won't be miserable. He'll be happy. He will have a good, happy life. And other things will come into his life that will reward him and be as meaningful as if he had done that other thing he wanted to do. It's not like there's this good life you can live and then this secondary kind of default life that you have to live. No, if you live that, whatever life you have, if you live it positively and get rid of the ego and the beliefs and the fear, which is what makes you self-centered, it's the fear. It's a fear it won't work out the way I want it. That's what's driving it. If you get rid of all that stuff, no matter where your life is, no matter what you're doing, no matter whether you live in a mansion or in a little shack with a dirt floor, you'll be happy. Life will be good. And generally, people will like you. They'll try to help you out. They'll tend to give you the things you need. You will be a good person that everybody likes. Everybody tries to help, and you'll be trying to help everybody else. And that's the way the world should be. We should all be trying to help each other. So that's the problem, is that nobody sees the self-centeredness. They see that they're justified and perfectly justified in whatever attitudes they have. And because of that, then they double down on their attitude. They keep trying to manipulate the world to be the way they want it rather than accepting it the way it is. And if you can accept it the way it is, let people be who they are. Okay, this person has these problems. And those problems aren't something I really enjoy. But, really, how big a problem is it? Is this really going to ruin my life if I have to deal with this? Or is it just that I don't like it? Well, the I don't like it is self-centered. If it's really something terrible, every time they walk in your house, they punch a hole in your sheetrock or something, well, then you need to do something about that, of course. I'm not saying that this is, you just wander around in la-la land and don't care about anything, of course. Then you do something about that. But there's a lot of things you can't do anything about. And being upset with them because they're not the way you want them is just a problematic attitude. Once you let go of that self-centered, I want, I need, you shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't do those things. And they, well, that's the way they are. They do those things because they're just like me. They're trying to grow up. They're struggling. They're making a lot of their choices out of fear. They're self-centered, just like me, except they're self-centered in a direction that makes them do things I don't like. And I'm probably self-centered in a way that do things that they don't like. And, just let all that go. What are the good things they do? Focus on those. Let the things that really don't matter that much go. Yes, it's not optimal from your viewpoint, but life doesn't have to be optimal from your viewpoint. Right. Let it be the way it is. Let people be the way they are. Now, if they do something really destructive or disruptive, then you can step in and see what you can do about it. And if you find out there's nothing you can do about it, then you have the choice. You can leave and go someplace else. Or, you can learn to live with it. So that's just a real simple way of looking at it. But this getting rid of your fear, which causes the self-centeredness, that's a big problem. That's not easy to do. It's a very, our culture actually tends to push us into being self-centered. It's just our culture. It's not like we're all born defective or something. We're in this culture, and the culture tends to push us to be self-centered. It's a culture of control, power, force. It's a culture of grab everything you can grab, and then you have to fight to hang on to it. It's a culture of I'm going to get to where I'm going, even have to step on you. It's a culture of me first. Look out for number one. That's the culture we live in. When you live in that culture, you're going to have a lot of grabby people who would just as soon, walk over you as walk with you. Whatever's best for them. They make all their choices based on what's best for them. And they don't think much about anybody else other than themselves. So when you live in that kind of a culture, you're kind of pushed into that place of being self-centered. Everybody has to look out for number one. And that's kind of a defensive mood, a defensive thing for you to get into because that's the world we live in. But you don't have to go that way. You can find out that if you're just positive and pleasant with everybody, your stress level will go down, your health will go up, your happiness will go up, and your life will be just fine because you just don't try to control all those things that are not yours to control, like other people's personalities, what they're doing, the choices they make. That's not yours to control. It's theirs to control. It's yours to deal with it in the most positive way possible and to not get cranky because of it, because it's not what I want. That's the problem. Let people be how they are. Learn to live with it. Don't have to have it your way. It's my way or the wrong way. You either need to act the way I want you to act, or you're acting wrong. You need to fix that. You have this problem, see? And if you just listen to me, I'll tell you how to fix this problem you have. But don't tell me how to fix any problem I have, because I'm almost perfect just the way I am. This is the way we feel. And partly it's just our culture. We grow up in a culture that kind of teaches us to be self-centered. It's, but a measure of maturity is really a measure of how self-centered you are. If you look at kids, 5 and 6, 7-year-olds, they're all very self-centered. Babies, even more self-centered. All they know is if you want something, scream and somebody will figure it out and give it to you. They're very self-centered because that's all they know. Just me, I am, and everything else is who knows. They don't have any control over anything. So they're very self-centered. And children are self-centered. It's about them. I want that toy. It's the way they are. That's natural. It's not a fault. It's just natural. But eventually the children learn consideration for others. They learn to be polite. They learn to say thank you and other things. It's not natural for them to be polite, but they learn it. And as they start caring about other people, that's called maturity. That's growing up. And the amount to which you are grown up has nothing to do with your age. It has to do with how self-centered you are. So, we all know people who are maybe elderly and still very self-centered. So they just got stuck at around 6 years old and never actually grew out of it. They're still self-centered. Like the banker in that story that you're talking about, very self-centered. Everything he did was just about what was good for him, period, and didn't care about anybody else. But you'll also notice that banker was a miserable old person that was having no fun in life. They were, full of stress and full of negativity, and their life was terrible. You wouldn't want to share, you wouldn't want to exchange your life for theirs. The life was terrible. Yes, had a lot of money. This life was miserable. And that's just the way it is. If you can be positive, get rid of that fear, that self-centeredness, your life will be really good. No, people won't walk over you. They'll respect you. You'll have more power that way than you would ever have by exerting yourself and your own personality out in front. Just as an example of that, look at the people who have made huge changes in the world. Powerful people who have really changed not only their neighborhoods, but the whole world. I'd say somebody like Gandhi, somebody like Martin Luther King, somebody like Nelson Mandela. They have changed the world in many ways. They affected people in their own countries, but people all over the world. These were powerful people. And these were people who cared about others. These were people who are not self-centered. So when you give up the self-centeredness, you think, oh, it's going to be awful. If I don't look out for me, I'll just be, down at the bottom. I'll be in the, bleeding at the curbside, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
It's wrong. You'll get more power. You'll get more respect. More people will like you. Things will happen for you and fall in, things will fall at your feet just as you need them. It's almost like suddenly you become the luckiest person in the world, because everything you really need just comes to you just as you need it. Everything works out really, really well, even if it's a little scary going in. That's what happens when you're positive, because when you're positive, that helps other people around you be positive. And they like that feeling. So they'll do things for you. They'll give you the break. They'll give you things because you're just a good person. So being the good person isn't the weak hand. That's the strong hand. Being the self-centered person, that's the weak hand. That's what makes your life miserable and a struggle, constantly struggling, because it's a never-ending struggle when you want to manipulate the world to be the way you want it. It's just not going to happen. But you keep trying and keep trying and keep trying, and it just makes you stressed. It makes you unhealthy. It makes you not very much fun to be around. Yeah. You know, your social life starts to go to zero too, because nobody likes to be around somebody who's always trying to tell other people what to do and how to do it. So if there's only two ways to do something, your way and the wrong way, you know, you probably are having a hard time in life. You probably didn't get that raise. You probably, have other problems that come up. You create those problems by your own attitude. So the guy in the movie, instead of saying, oh, he was a martyr, poor guy, he suffered mightily, let's look at him on the other way. He didn't suffer. He had a lot of setbacks that changed his plans, but he dealt with all of them positively. He didn't go cry in the basement and tell all his friends how miserable he was. He didn't try to hustle somebody else to get an advantage. He didn't say, oh, no, brother, you come here and do this business, and I'm going off to school. And if you don't like that, well, then, we'll just lose the business, and who cares? I've got some money, you don't. Your problem, not mine. He could have played hardball like that, but he didn't. And he didn't because he did what he knew was right. And he probably felt good about it. Oh, he was disappointed for a day or two, but after the disappointment, he let that disappointment go, and he lived the rest of his life and had, yes, a good life. He had a very beautiful life. That was what the story was all about. And it was because he cared about others that he had such a beautiful life. If he hadn't cared about others, he probably had a much less beautiful life. He may have even had an ugly life, is what people have when it's all about them. They have a tough life. Barriers. Always there's some barrier. Always something you want but you can't quite get. And you work and work, and sometimes you get it, but then if you do, there's another barrier. It's like there's always one after the next, because you create those yourself. With that attitude of being self-centered, creates the barriers. Right. So that's a better way to look at it, is say he wasn't a martyr at all. He was just a really good guy, a nice guy who did what he had to do. He knew what he could change and what he couldn't change. He knew what would be best for everybody. If he did this instead of that, that would kind of be a better thing for everyone, because he could do the thing he had to do. Wasn't what he wanted to do, but he could do it, and it would be all right. And other people could do, what they would do. The brother got to go to college. So anyhow, yes, you look back at it and you'd say, well, he looked back at it and said, what a beautiful life. But I think anybody would do the same. You'd look back at it and you say, well, I planned on this fork in the road, but I didn't. I went the other. I planned on this and that, but my life was wonderful. I helped a lot of people. I felt good. I basically was happy. I was satisfied with myself and what I did. And that's a beautiful life. A beautiful life isn't one where you live in a really big house and have a fat bank account. That's not a beautiful life. That's what the old Scrooge bank guy was. That's a miserable life. Yeah. So it works for everybody. That's the key. So don't let your culture push you into a miserable life. And look and see. Look around you. How many people do you know that are really, really happy with their lives and everything's just going great? And how many people have you met or know that are struggling? Yeah, well, that'll tell you almost everybody's self-centered. They just don't know it. And if you tried to tell them, they'd reject it and say, that's just not true. I can tell you all the really good reasons I have for having the feelings that I have.
Yes.
But let's talk about how you can get past it. How do you get over it? Well, the way you get over it is to just first, you have to really want to get over it. And I mean that in a very basic, fundamental way. You have to really want to get over it. If you just think about it and say, well, I should get over that. That'd be a good thing for me to do. It won't happen. You'll just you'll do better for a week or two, and then you'll be exactly back in the same path that you were always in. So you really need to want to change. Number one, if you don't have that, nothing else will work. And that desire to change has to be deep down at your being level, not in your intellect. The intellect can say, oh, that would be a good thing for me to do. But that intellect is not really in charge of your life. That's often the thing that makes up good excuses for you. So what you need to do is then, when you really want to, you need to catch yourself when you're making a choice out of fear. You realize you're making a choice because this isn't what I want. This is not good for me. And I need everything I want. I should have it, because the reason the world's screwed up is they're not doing what I want them to do. If everybody would just do the way I tell them, then the world would be such a happy place. You have this idea, right? And that's called being believing that you're the master of the universe, right? That's something that 4 and 5-year-olds, 3-year-olds, well, 2-year-olds are really good at that. They go through the no phase. Yeah. They're masters of the universe. But we're supposed to grow up beyond that and let go of those self-centered attitudes. So you just catch yourself. And when you catch yourself, take a deep breath, look at the situation, and say, is this something I can change? Is this something that's mine to change? And if you're not self-centered, you'll realize there's not a whole lot that is yours to change other than yourself. I mean, there's a few things. You can decide to change jobs, or change apartments, or change, the way you go to work. There's a lot of things you can change that are small like that. But the big things in life, the things you really like to change, are usually the things that you can't change, like other people, yes, like the decisions that your boss makes, or how much rent you get charged. These are not things that you can change. So you either decide to live with it or do something else. But do it gracefully. Do it with no negativity. So that's the key. You want to change. You have to really want to catch yourself. And when you catch yourself, just back away from that. Well, I know this is best. If they just do it this way, it'd be better for them too. So I really need to teach them how to live their life better, because I know how they should live their life. Well, maybe you do know how they should live their life. Let's say that's true. And you know how they should live their life, and that would be better for them. The best thing to do is just be quiet, because you can't tell them. And if you try to teach them, they'll resent it, and then they'll resent you, and it'll just cause more and more trouble. So if you really want to help them, be kind to them. And you may give them an environment where they feel safe, because if they feel safe, they have a higher probability of changing who they are, of reaching out, of stretching past their comfort point to change themselves, because everybody's very comfortable with the way they are. So they have to get past this comfort to change themselves. But if you threaten them or pushing them, then they'll never change. So if you can give them the support and a pleasant, positive space, they might just change. Mm-hmm. They might see things differently. But as long as you keep pushing them to change, they're likely to never see things differently. So then you become part of the problem that you don't like, you see. It's not just them, it's you and them. You create a lot of the problems that you have because you're self-centered. That creates the problem. So yes, a whole lot of things. If we can just get over this, it's all about me. We can. There's a whole lot of things that'll just fix themselves very, very quickly. And even if the other things don't fix, that doesn't matter either. It's not, well, I'm going to be nice until that person fixes themselves. That's the wrong attitude. It's not that. You just have to be nice and let them be however they are. The probability goes up that they'll change themselves, but they may not change. They may not be ready to change. They can't grow up until they're ready. You can't grow up until you're ready. And being ready is most all about just recognizing that you need to change, that your life is full of struggle. Because if your life is full of struggle, I can guarantee you it's because of your attitude. It's not because of all those awful people out there that are making your life difficult. It seems that way, but that's not what's going on. No matter what your situation is, and if you're positive about things, you will end up with a much happier life. So a hard thing to do to change who you are, but if you really want to, it'll happen. You will change. That's all it takes. You'll do all the right things. So the big key is you really have to want to change. That desire to change will make you sensitive to the choices you make. You see? So it's not like you say, well, what's my list? Okay, I have to be more aware of my choices. And so you really don't have to. That'll all fall in together once you get to the point that you say, I really want to change. I want to not be in a world full of struggle. I want to help other people. I want to care more about others, and I'll make the best that I can with what I've got. And if you have that, then everything will work out fine. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have any ambition. Sure, you can have ambitions. Go to school, get a degree, learn how to prompt AIs, because that's the new big thing, Learn what it is, that's good. Sure, you can be ambitious. That's not being self-centered. That's just being smart. You can be ambitious. Sure, you still have to take a shower every once in a while, because it's not self-centered to want to be clean and not smell bad. That's being nice to other people. And you can't say, well, if I'm not self-centered, I wouldn't care anything about me. No, that's silly.
Yeah.
Of course, you'd have to care about you. You have to care about how you present yourself. You have to make sure that you find a job to put gas in the car. You have to pay your rent. There's a lot of things that are requirements in your life, and you have to meet all those requirements. But you can meet them all positively. You don't have to think, oh, these things, these requirements in your life, that's what drags me down. That's the terrible stuff. You see, that's being negative. Being positive doesn't dwell on what you don't like. It dwells on what you do like and what the good possibilities are. If you start thinking about all the things you don't like, you're going in the wrong direction. That's counting your miseries. You want to count your blessings, you want to wallow in gratitude, not wallow in self-pity. So
that's a good phrase. I like that. Wallow in gratitude. I like
yes, just get into that gratitude and just wallow around and say, this is really a good life. I have all these wonderful things. Look, it's wintertime and I'm not cold.
Right.
I live in a house with heat. A lot of people don't live in a house with heat. What about all those homeless people live under the bridge? What are they doing tonight? Well, okay, gratitude. I have food in the refrigerator. Gratitude. I have people that love me. I've got children that love me and need me, and I've got parents, and I've got the next door neighbors, and I've got my best friends, and I have lots of things that are good. And if you wallow in that gratitude and just think about all the good things in your life, not all the good things you don't have. Oh, yeah, I'd like a new Mercedes-Benz. I don't have one, woe is me, that sort of thing. But yes, wallow in gratitude about all the wonderful things that you do have, and that'll change your perspective. You won't be so constantly needing for things to change for you to be happy. You can be happy with things just the way they are, and you just have to change your attitude. Don't require people to be the way you want them to be. Let them be how they are and interact with those positive parts. And you'll find most of the time their negative parts that irritate you are only 1/10 of who they are. The other 9/10 of who they are is really very nice. Well, let the 1/10 go. It's not that important. Have fun with the 90, with the 90%. Let the little stuff go. Okay, they don't clean up after themselves. And wherever they are, it leaves a big mess, and you end up having to clean up for it. All right, let that go. If they only have negative points, well, maybe that's a problem, and you need to fix that. But look and see, for the most part, what you don't like about people, it's only a small fraction of what that person really is. So focus on the things you do like. And if you have to pick up after them constantly, well, Is that such a bad thing? If you do that with the right attitude, then it's something you can do with love,
Right.
something you can do that's caring for that person rather than something you have to do because that jerk won't pick up, after himself. It becomes a negative thing then, and then a problem. And then that problem grows and gets bigger and bigger. You can't stand it anymore. And all it is that it takes you, maybe 3 extra minutes
Yeah,
to
right.
do the picking up. And you're ready to change your whole life because those 3 extra minutes are so horrible. Yeah, we get ourselves worked up into things that are small. Okay, so I have to work maybe even 5 or 10 extra minutes in a day picking up after somebody. Is that really a huge burden on my life? Is that going to make me miserable? Well, it shouldn't. And you should do it, not with I have to do this. It's not fair. You should do it with, this will make all of us live in a nicer place if it's neat, and I'll keep it neat. And it'll be good for everybody. And you do it positively. Yeah, but that's not fair. She should pick up his own stuff. I shouldn't have to pick it up. And now it becomes a big issue. And that issue then will cause you perhaps throw away that 90% because you couldn't deal with the 10%. That's self-centered. See, that's the problem. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's not the smart thing to do. You got to look at life and be positive about things. Well, if it only takes me an extra 5 and 10 minutes of work, then it's not a big deal. Let it be. And then that person, now that you're not harping on them all the time, that person is likely to notice, oh, see, all my stuff's being picked up by somebody else. See, that's not very fair of me. I ought to start picking it up myself. See, they might change. But as long as you're going, pick up their own stuff, what's the matter with you? Don't leave that stuff around here. If you do that, then that pushes them to not pick it up. That aggravates the problem. And you become part of the problem that you dislike. You help create it and make it worse. So it just makes good sense to let go of that fear because it just does damage everywhere you look.
Right.
And you won't become a person that gets run over because you're not looking out for number one. You'll do just the opposite. You will become a more powerful person. You'll be more likely to get that raise. You'll be more likely that that person will change and start picking up their own stuff. You'll be a positive influence in the world. Other people will be better because of your example. So that's a much better way to live.
Yes. Lead by example. It's always it's a tough one because we seem so attached to how everybody else lives. Right? It's like, no, you can't do that. No, that's silly. Don't, but it's like, I try to help my clients when they're talking about their families and stuff. It's like, if you want to give them a consequence, that's great. But harping on the same thing over and over and over again is not going to help them change. I mean, and I try to say, do you remember when you were a teenager? Like, do you remember? And, a lot of them don't, but it's like, gosh, why do I remember so well? But it's like, teenager wants to be told what to do. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Nobody, not us, not nobody. It's like, why would they want to change if all you're doing is telling them? And it's not like we do it in a really positive way. It's like we're always, when we say something wrong, it's like, well, you're bad. Like you got to do this right. And it's like, wow, we really put so much emphasis, and the media, as you mentioned, is really good at trying to help us see the whole victim thing. Cause we really, support groups are not supportive because they really dwell on the victim. But that's just it. Like we get so caught up, and I've been extra vigilant this year about saying, okay, I don't want to get caught up in this. Now, mind you, when I had to move, it was a bit of a challenge, and yet I would go for a walk every morning and I would walk around the neighborhood and I would look at possibilities. So I think that sort of allowed for everything to happen the way it happened. But there was a time there that I was not happy. I thought, oh no, this is not going to be good. And then everything came out to be perfect. So it's just when we try to control the situation, then we're not allowing even the universe to offer something that's better, because there would have been no way that I would have expected to get this place right on the water. I mean, there was just no part of me that thought this was going to be something that would come up. And yet it was, and it was better than anything else out there. And it made me realize just how much we focus on us instead of, I mean, it's hard when, you have to move. You kind of have to focus on you, but we really put so much emphasis on what we want instead of, and the control factor, like it's amazing how we can get so caught up. So after that was done and after everything, I was just like, okay, I got to stop. I've got to really look at this from a different perspective and really, really want. And as you said, I really want to make this the year that 2026 is going to be my year, where as much as my ego I can let go of, I'm going to try. Well, I'm just going to do it because it's what I want. I want to feel.
Well, it's not so much that you shouldn't want things. Wanting things are fine. It's that you dwell in the negative when you want things. You dwell on what you don't have.
Right.
You dwell on the difficulties. You dwell on how impossible it is to get to where you want to go. So you're always looking at the negative side of things.
Yes.
And that's the problem. It's not the having the want. You may want a nice apartment. You may want to go to college. You may want to have a better job. There's a lot of things you can want. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Not being self-centered doesn't mean you have any wants. Of course you have wants. But it's being positive, doing things in a positive way. And when you get the trouble with the negativity, well, besides the fact that it makes everything worse, what the problem is that once you get started with a little negativity, you get more negativity, and you tend to go down that spiral in negativity. You'll start off and say, well, see, this move is going to be a lot of trouble, and I'm going to have a hard time finding a place. You see, now you're only thinking of the negative. It's going to be difficult. I'm going to have a hard time. It's a big problem. And as you focus on everything that's wrong, you don't help anything that's positive come about, because your mind is all about all the wrong things. You're really putting energy into everything being wrong. Your intent modifies future probability. So if you dwell on the things that are wrong and the things that are negative, and this is not the way they should be, and he should pick up his stuff, and I can't find an apartment, and none of them are any good, and the only one I liked had roaches everywhere. You just think of the negative things, then you won't find a positive thing, because all you're doing is putting all your effort into what you don't want,
right,
and into what's wrong and all the problems. And that then creates the problems that you don't want. So you become a creator of the very negative stuff that you don't like. So you get stuck in this negative cycle, because the more negative you are, then the worse things get, which makes you more negative, and then they get even worse, which makes you more negative. And we just end up then at that bottom of the barrel, and our life is full of struggle and full of unhappiness, and nothing ever seems to work out for us, and so on. And if life was just positive, and you accepted the things you can't change, you change the things you can, and you just go through life with a positive attitude, you'd be surprised how good things turn out for you. You don't have to force your way into a positive situation. We kind of think we do. Right. If it's going to be a good thing, we have to, we have to beat the door down and grab it by the throat, wrestle it to the ground. We have to capture it. And it doesn't work that way. When you're positive, those nice things just come to you. They happen to you because you're nice. Nice things come to you. When you're angry and upset things come to you. So it's just changes everything. If you can just break out of the self-centered negativity, that's the problem. Those two go together. When you're self-centered, you see all the bad things that everybody else is doing, and you know that they should be doing differently. All the things that, oh, how unfortunate for me. You know, I have to move. I've been here for 17 years and now I have to move. Oh, what a bummer. And if you have that attitude, then you'll struggle with the move. If you have the attitude of, oh, I get to start on a whole new adventure. I'm going to end up someplace else. I mean, you're going to end up someplace else, even if it's in the Salvation Army, you know. You're going to end up someplace else, and it's going to be a whole new adventure. I'm going to meet new people. It's going to give me a lot of new perspectives, and look at it that way, positive. And then things start falling into place. And the best buy ever just shows up just as you walk in the door. That's because now you're positive and you're starting to create positive things in your life, not negative things. So that's just the nature of this reality. You modify future probability with your intent. If your intent is mostly negative, you manifest a lot of negativity, a lot of problems. If your intent is mostly positive, you manifest a lot of positive things. It just works that way. That's the nature of the reality that we're in. So it's not that you can't have wants, you can't have needs, that you can't make plans, that you can't, work yourself up to the place that you want to be. Sure, do all those things, but do it positively. Don't fixate on all the barriers in your way. Find a path. It may take you a while to get there, but find the path and keep it in focus and you'll end up there.
Yes.
And you'll have a lot of fun along the way. I'm sorry, say that again.
And we'll have a wonderful life.
Yes, and we'll have a wonderful life. That's exactly right. Yes. And if you look at your life and you say, what's really important in my life? I mean, what's key to my life? It's not going to be how much money you have. It's not going to be the car you drive. It's not going to be any of the stuff. The key to your life is going to be the relationships. And those relationships, you're at least half of it.
Yeah.
It's not like they're just outside of you. They just happen to you, You're at least half of that equation. So the things that really matter are the people and the connections and how helpful you can be. What can you do for other people? Because you have that attitude, then it comes back to you. It comes back to you usually in more than what you give away. It comes back to you. So if you just stop being entranced by the negative, of course, that's hard in our culture. Our culture is all about the negative. Good news is not even newsworthy. Oh. Bad news is newsworthy over and over and over again. Some terrible thing happens, you'll hear about it 5 times a day for 3 weeks. But if some really wonderful thing happens, you won't hear about it at all because nobody really cares. So we're fixated on the negative. And if you live that life, if you watch the news every night because you have to know what's going on, well, that fixates you into the negative. Then you'll dislike all those people that are screwing it up for the rest of us. Of course, they dislike you for screwing it up for them. They see it exactly from the other side. And everybody dislikes everybody else, and you end up with a very dysfunctional culture. But our culture is a little tough to grow up in and grow up positive. You have to really want to. It's easy if you just let go and go with the flow here, you'll end up fixated in the negative because that's the way our culture is. We look at everything that's wrong. And we don't even find the stuff that's good interesting because that doesn't matter to us so much. We want to see everything wrong because we want to understand how to avoid it.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
We want to know how to avoid that. Oh, these terrible things happen because these people live in that part of the city. Well, we want to avoid that part of the city. So we pay attention to everything wrong and nasty because we want to know how to avoid that if there's something that we can do to avoid it. So that's kind of the survival instinct in us wants to know what can hurt. Okay, those berries they look like they might be good, but are they poison or not? You know, that whether they're poisonous or not, that's what's important. You know, that they might taste good, that's not the important thing. Is are they poisonous? Because they might be poisonous and taste good, you know. So poisonous outweighs taste good.
Yeah.
So we tend to focus on the negative. It's part of the way we are. But you have to overcome that when you grow up. You have to get out of that cultural trend to see everything negative and see everything from the negative side. Look at all the things that you don't like about life and then make them bigger and bigger and bigger to where having to spend 10 minutes to pick up after somebody is probably worth a divorce or a fist fight or something. You know, it becomes the biggest thing in your life when it's really a trivial thing that you've blown all out of proportions.
Yeah, perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have we killed this one? Have we beat this horse to death?
We've created a wonderful life. Yeah, we're good. We're definitely good. All right. Well, you've been listening to News for the Heart. We've been at the Heart of What Matters with Tom Campbell. And yeah, I'm going to say it again. It's a wonderful life. So let's enjoy. And I sincerely wish everybody a wonderful holiday season. I guess we're past most of it, but we still have the new year. So let's have a kind and wonderful new year.
Yes. And remember this new year, as you are saying goodbye to your relatives and friends and so on, when all the parties are over, remember, wallow in gratitude.
There you go.
Just think positive. Stay positive. Just when the negative things come up, just let them be. Walk away from them. Don't engage them.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of negativity out there, and it's not, you can't make it go away, but just don't engage it. Just let it alone. Let it do its own thing in its own way, and maybe it'll grow up someday too, but you have to just not engage with the negative. Engage in everything positive, and your life will change.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll be back next year. Ooh. And yeah, it'll be love month, so we know it's going to be about relationships. All right. Thank you so much, Tom, and we'll be back soon.
Thank you, Laurie.